What's up, YouTube? I think this is part 3 in the Miata build, V6, Miata GT, whatever you want to call it. So what we got going today is this. This is a DIYAutotune Megasquirt right there. This is equivalent to a Megasquirt 3. And I got this kit because I wanted to run sequential spark and injection. So we're going to be running sequential spark injection in our V6. I got some Ellis coils and plugs. These right here. These are the Ellis, I think, D585 coils. These are like truck coils. They come with the coolers on them. I got these off of eBay. This is a kit for a V8, so I got 8 coils. We're going to be using 6 of them. Now we got 2 spares. But yeah, we got a whole bunch of engine management stuff that came in. I'm going to be showing you in a later video. But here's a little sneak peek. Right now what we're going to do is I'm going to go through how I built this from start to finish, building the internals of the computer all the way to building the wire harness. So yeah, hope y'all enjoying the series so far, and I hope y'all learning something with me, because this is also my first time doing this. But hopefully y'all come out learning something. That's the goal. But alright, I'm gonna show y'all step number 1. So appreciate y'all sticking along. Follow this, subscribe, like, everything, and appreciate y'all. What's up? So we're back. Sorry I couldn't get everything recorded. My camera died earlier, but it's pretty straightforward. You just have to follow this image. You can get it on Trubokitty.com. And so the biggest area of concerns is, of course, these red circles right here, where it says R22 and it's vertical, and R19 that's sort of in a diagonal. So if you can see right here, this is R32, R22, sorry, and it is in spot R52. It says right here R52, but we put a resistor R22 in there. And then right here, this is R19, and we put it in resistor spot R13 with one lead going into the left side of R13 if you're looking at it from the top, and then one going into the right side of R45. So the easiest way for that I found to get this connection was to put R45 in first and then put R19, because R19 is actually a smaller gauge. The only other thing that might be kind of tricky is getting the diodes. Well, also the capacitor, but mainly the diodes. All the diodes have a black bar right here. It's hard to see. So, but it also says on the board, it also says on the diagram, you have to just match the bar with the bar right here. And also the capacitors, it's hard to see, but the capacitor that I got has a red line that goes this way and then down, and also these two big capacitors, the longest lead is the positive sides, and it also says on the diagram which side is positive, except for a capacitor 22. Both of those on capacitor 22 are the same size or the same length of lead, but it is easy to see on the capacitor. You probably can't see it here, but on the capacitor it has a little plus sign on it. And then the only other tough part, the really tough part in my opinion, is the getting the integrated circuits on. So this right here, this is just a sort of like a bridge, and then this is for the, I think either the daughter board or the MSX expansion card to connect to this. I'm not sure yet, but the most difficult part is making sure that all these connections on the back do not touch. These cannot touch at all. Some of these look like they're touching, but they're actually not. It's just a flux, leftover flux. I soldered and sort of ran it in between each one of these just to make sure. You see these two, they seem a little close, so I'm gonna fix those. You don't need much solder. Literally, you should take your time. Right now, I stopped myself so I can tell you how to do the map sensor, which on the diagram is U2, but on the diagram it has it on the front. It should go on the back of the circuit board, so it should go like this, I think, into the pins for that socket. Because if you can see right here, you can see that connects the side of the circuit board has a hole perfectly made for the map sensor hose to stick out, so we can put in our vacuum line. But yeah, I'm just gonna go ahead hook up the map sensor and show you how it should be. Alrighty, last integrated circuit you have to install is U5. As you can see, this is how you set it up. You'll have to bend over the pins around this heatsink, around this heatsink, sorry. So this heatsink is an extra piece of material right here. You see it shifting around. And what you have to do is put this dielectric grease, or like heatsink grease, the same thing you use for your computer, and then you use the longer bolts. The daughter board comes with 2 long bolts and also 2 standoffs, sorry, and you have to use the shorter of the 2, and then this other one is going to go right here on the 3rd hole later on. But this is how you set it up. But yeah, once you install it, all you have to do is solder the back. Solder the back, there we go, these 3 pins right here. And then you can sort of tighten it up finger tight, don't tighten it too much. And then the next thing we got to do is our jumpers. As you can see, I've already done. We have our tac select to VR in, and then our T select to VR out, and S12C to JS9. That's the bottom of the 30. You can also see the diagram right here. There's also other things you might have to do if you have an MB or MB2, but I have an NA, so I don't have to worry about that stuff. But the next thing we're going to do is get our daughter board ready to install. So I'll show you once we get to the next step. I almost forgot this one more jumper. This is the jumper coming off of S12. I don't know if you can see it, but here, and sort of like the instructions, it shows the S12, and this one is for the MS3 expander. But I currently don't have it, so I almost forgot it. I will have it, and I will install it, but today we'll just be getting everything in except the MS3 expander. Alrighty, so I brought you guys into sort of a first person point of view so we can install the daughter board. It's a little complicated. So in the little box with the daughter board, you're gonna get this, I guess, sort of like a spacer. You're gonna need it to accommodate for the height of these standoffs. So the spacer, you're gonna want to line it up, all the notches together. So you see this one has a notch. There's also a notch down here, and if you bring the daughter board, there's also a notch right there. So you're gonna want to line up all the notches together. There we go. And so you're gonna see that the board has sort of a skinny edge, then it fattens up. You're gonna want to bring this spacer all the way up to the fat edge, and then now we can install our board here. So you're gonna want to line up, I would say the best way to do it is line up this pin with this bottom pin and sort of rock it into place. Line up the pin on the other side over here, so line up these 2 bottom pins first, and then sort of rock it forward. There we go. Before we do that, you're gonna want to put, you're gonna want to put a washer right here on top of the standoff, like that. And you're gonna put another one on the other standoff, like so. There we go. That click means that it came in well, and I'm looking and I can see that sort of the fat edge of that pin, of all the pins pressed up against the spacer. And so now you're gonna put another washer on top, and then we're gonna seat these screws. Alrighty. And as you can see, what I meant with these two seating well, all the edges lined up on the data board spacers, and we got our washers on both sides of our standoffs. There we go. Washer there, washers down here. It's flat and level. There we go. So that's basically all I got for now. I'm still waiting on my expander board to show up. Alrighty, I'm back, YouTube. Last time I left you off, I was waiting on our MS3X expansion board, and here it is. We got it. There we go, MS3X expander. So with this is gonna help us do not only up to a V8, but this one can also do V8 without it, but this will help us do sequential injection and spark. So that's a big thing with that. So what I left you off with was we put in this last jumper, we installed our daughter board, and now we're going to work on next is putting in the expander. But first what we have to do is get you a little flathead screwdriver, and we have to set our R56 resistor. So this has to be turned fully clockwise, which here on the Trubokitty website it says that it's about 12 turns clockwise, and then turn it back 7.5 turns. So the best way I think of going about it is getting you sort of a Sharpie marker, any kind of marker. The pen wasn't working out too well, but try scratching it with the flathead, but it also didn't work out too well. But you probably can't see it, but there's just a tiny little dot. You can really put it anywhere. That'll just be your reference mark before you go back to. Probably can't see it, but that's alright. So what you gotta do is get you that flathead and put it in. So we're gonna start going counterclockwise. So that'll be 12 turns like that. Gave it a little bit of extra because it really doesn't matter how far backwards you go. So now that we got to turn counterclockwise fully 12 times, now it says turn it back clockwise 7.5 times. So we set it up back where our reference mark was. It was about like this. So now we're just start going the other way. There we go. And so now we got to work on R11 and R32. So just went on a spiel, but bringing it back. So now what we got to do is, now that we've set that R56 resistor, there's a R11 and an R32 resistor on the actual expander board, and I'm gonna pull that out right now and show you guys. Alrighty, so got y'all set up. My camera's a little trash, so a little unboxing, I guess. So in here you can see the two resistors, this one And this one's R11, this one is R32. And so now what it's telling us to do is turn it fully counterclockwise, and for this one it says it'll be about 6 turns. And then R11 gets turned clockwise again, but not R32. So we're just gonna go ahead. So what I did, you probably can't see it, is on the skinnier edge off of the dial, I just put in a little mark with the flathead, like pushing it in. So now I'm gonna show you turning it.
I'm dropping you texts now. You said you want me when it starts. Being with you just feels right. You said we could meet it when it starts. Slow down. Sun is about to go down. So what you doing tonight? It's everything I can't think of.
Alrighty, so now I got them turned counterclockwise a lot. So this one is R11. This one we turn back clockwise, and then R32 we just leave it turned all the way counterclockwise. So R11 will go back 3.5 turns, and then we're just gonna leave R32 how it is. And for me, this is as far as I'm going, because I don't have VVT with the stock Mustang engine. So I'm leaving it non-VVT, so I don't need to install the one. I went ahead and adjusted these cam inputs, and so now is when you should start installing all the jumpers that you need on the MS3X expander board. So as you can see on this msextra.com, this PDF to install, it tells you exactly what all the jumpers do and if you need it or not. So as you can see, they're all labeled with the red sort of dialogues. So the top will be the header ribbon. These spare pins are for header expansions, if they're ever gonna make another expansion board for the expansion board. And then JP8 right here is the small one in the middle. That's if you're going to run nitrous on it. And JP3 right here is if you're gonna run a taco output pull-up jumper. And these 3 in the middle are optional bias resistors on the ADC inputs when used with a temperature sensor. So that's what that says. And JP7 here is a cam input pull-up jumper. So what I'll be putting on is the optional, but it's recommended, is if you plan on running an idle valve. I'm not sure if the 3.8 liter from a Mustang has an idle valve, but it's better safe than sorry. It doesn't take but a couple seconds to install it. And all you have to do is strip this wire to the length you need. It'll probably be somewhere around here. And the edge of the wire will have to get soldered on side C of D1. So right here you see some diodes or resistors. I don't know what these are. I think they're diodes. But this diode right here is labeled D1, and side C is on the right if you're holding the MS3X expander board like this. If you hold it like this top one right here is D1, and the right side of that is side C. So you're just gonna solder a wire across the entire side of it, and I'll show you that once I'm done with it.
this to last. Said you wanted honest. I'm giving you my hand.
So you got the wire soldered in. Be careful that you don't bridge it into the dial behind it. That's another dial. That's dial D4. So it goes D1, D2, then just goes straight to D4 and D5. D3 is over here and D6 is over here. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So D1 is the only one you want to splice that into. I don't know what you can see that, but that might be it for now. For as far as soldering with the board, now we can start assembly. So you're going to need these plates. They come with the MS3 regular kit. So now we're gonna put this one in place. Alright, we almost got the case fully assembled. There's a few things you need to know. This case has sort of levels on it, or sort of cuts on the side, and I don't know if you can see, but the daughter board, the regular board, is 3 levels up. And you definitely can't see, but all the way in the back, the MX expander board will be 4 levels. So you see these lines cut out. So it'll be 1, 2, 3, and on the 4th one down, that's where you put the expander board, and they'll line it up perfectly in the back. And all these plugs come with these sort of screw-on tips, and this is where you screw on the connector. You have to take that off and screw it on the outside of the side plates. That's so it'll keep it flush up against it, and it'll give it backing when you push in the cable, so you don't knock anything out from the other side. And these corner edges where you have to put in some screws right here, you have to drill them out. They're way too tight and small for the screws they come with, but it's a really, really, really small drill bit, so be careful that you don't drill it out too much. And so yeah, so I'm gonna go ahead, finish up the assembly on this, and then I might as well go ahead and start working on the harness for the MS3X expander and the regular board. So I'm gonna go ahead, finish building this up, show you the finished product, and then start working on the harness. Alrighty guys, finished up the main board plug. I finished soldering it. As you can see, the colors aren't exactly matching up to what it was, but it's because I only bought the wiring bundle for the MS3 expander. I didn't buy the one for the dollar board, but that's because I'm a cheapskate. But I just trimmed up some cables that I needed. So like this ground, I used 1 ground wire from the expander kit and cut out all these ground connections, because this is mainly like an adapter. It doesn't need to be super long. The longer it is, just the more space is going to take up in your wheel well or in your passenger side footboard. And I prefer this to fit underneath the OEM kick plate. So I'm going to try and make this whole sort of adapter harness, plug and play type harness, about this long. And I'm going to cut off all this and use it on the expander board. And everything that I got extra, I can use later on for something else. It's always good to keep a little bit of extra wire with you. But this is the main board. I got that done. And now we got this one down here. This one is for the expander board. As you can see, the plugs on this are different than the plugs on the main board, so you can't plug them in incorrectly. So I'm gonna go ahead and get to cracking on this. This is gonna be completely custom to what you're gonna do. So for me, as you can see, I'm trying to set it up for a V6. So what I'm gonna be using is all the spark options that I need. So it's gonna be spark A through F and injector A through F. And then I think I'm also going to need the cam sensor. And I think also EGO2. And of course all the grounds. So there's gonna be 4 grounds up, or 5 grounds up top. And this diagram is showing the expander from the back side. So it helps you sort of keep track of it. You probably can't see it from here, but super small letters, like it said on the other connector. There's a 1 on the top right over here and a 19 on the top left. And also the shape of it matches the diagram, as you can see. So I'm gonna go ahead and get to cracking on this, and catch up with you guys when I got this finished with everything I need. Alright, we got the MS3X expander loom made. Now what we're gonna do is splice together the ones that go from here to the DB37 female connector, or I'm sorry, not the DB37, the Miata connector, the Miata female connector. We need to solder the ones that we need back here. You can find out which ones you do need to put on by following this wiring diagram that's offered here. And so you can see that it labels each pin exactly what it does: ignition A, ignition B. And if you're going to do sequential injection and a sequential spark, you're going to see that they're going to be different. So injection A is for, I think it's pistons 1 and 2, and we'll also go through it here. So if you want sequential injection, A and D will go into the harness, and B and C will go straight out to the injectors. Same with, for in my case, injector E and injector F. So I'm gonna go ahead and get that wired up. I will show you guys after I get my injector, my MS3 expander loom and my main board loom connected together. Once I get these two wired up, I'll show you sort of the half end result. Alrighty, we got ourselves the plug and play part of the harness sort of halfway built up. You're gonna have to add a couple of things to it depending on what you need. As you can see up here, right here, is gonna be different for each year of Miata that you have. and also for the Mazda speed. And also there's a bunch of stuff that wasn't in sort of the description or what the MS3X can handle, because they're labeled differently. So this is labeled for like nitrous, boost, nitrous 2, tag, VVT, idle, and X1, which is ignition G, which here, and X1 stands for expander 1. X1 here is for the fan. So things like that, you're gonna have to switch them out. And also right here, CEL, that stands for check engine light. It says X7, but right here X7 is ignition E, and I'm already using ignition E, so I'm gonna have to change that. I changed it to one of these green medium current outputs. Even though this is a high current output, it still is fine to run with the medium current output, thanks to Matt from DIYAutotune. This man has been helping me a whole bunch with all the little details that I've been missing on this build, and we're gonna continue going along with it. So right here, as you can see, I'm putting stuff here in the middle. The middle doesn't have an actual connector diagram. This is connector 2 and connector 1, and connector 2 is this one right here on my left. I have it upside down, and connector 1 is the one on my right. And here in the middle, the Trubokitty guide says that you should buy this pigtail right here. So this pigtail, it hooks in right here, and then you can extend all these wires out to something else. And so that just makes it a little bit cleaner. Also lets it to, if you ever need to unplug this from, you know, the car, then you can just unplug the cables to this, make your modifications, and then plug these same cables right back. So we're going to be adding this connected to the car. It goes in just like this. It's really tight, it's going to be hard to take out, so I don't want to plug it in all the way. And then what I'm putting here are the rest of my injectors and spark plugs, because one, I have a V6, and two, I'm doing sequential injection and spark. So we're gonna need to separate each one of the spark plugs and injectors into their own cable, and then the rest I'm gonna fill it up with whatever I have left. So if you're doing a V8, you'd only need 4 more plugs, 2 for the spark, 2 for the injectors, and then you still have 1, 2, 3, 4 spots left. And that's if you're going to do sequential spark and sequential injection, which if you're running a V8, you'd probably be fine with just sequential injection, and you can make do with just like a distributor spark or something like that, especially if you're going to do like a small block 350 or something like that. It'll be fine. But I'm gonna go ahead now. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna trim all these to like a manageable length, and then I'm gonna start hooking up our connectors that go to the Megasquirt we built. And I just went through the testing process with the Megasquirt, and what you do is you take out your harness that you built that doesn't go to the expander. This one goes to the PCB, the regular board, and you hook up a negative to spot 19, and then the red 28 you use to hook up a positive, and you need to put in a 1 amp fuse, which a 1 amp fuse is just a regular old Christmas light fuse. Those are usually 1 to 3 amps. You hook that up to a battery. I pulled out the Miata battery to test that, and then you just test to make sure there's basically no fires. And then you can't, to my knowledge, you can't tune with it yet, because you need to stimulate the sensors and all other connections on the Megasquirt. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna trim these to a good manageable length, hook this into here, into whatever cables that are gonna be used here, and then the rest go to the expander. And I put heat shrink on all the cables just to double triple check to make sure they don't make contact, and did the same over here with the expander. But I didn't put an overall loom right here on the regular PCB board yet because I didn't, like I said earlier, I didn't have the cables that go to just the PCB. So these are all kind of like color coded, and the ones on here aren't. So it's gonna be a little tough trying to mix them together. So I do recommend you do get the PCB cables, but you really don't have to. You just need to be a little bit more careful.
Slow down. Sun is about to go down. So what you doing tonight? It's everything I can't think of.
Alrighty guys, this should be the finished product. Nice and neat. Don't forget to, when you're doing this, always put your heat shrink on first. Slide each little piece on, and then I slid an extra piece here just because the case for it, which is right here, the case for the has a possibility of chafing a little bit right down here. So I put that there, just precautionary measure. But I don't think it will chafe, but that's just in case. And so now that we got this part built, next part is doing the expander, which is obviously, as you can see, way more in depth, has way more cables. But since I have the expander board cables, hooking this up shouldn't be too difficult anymore. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this little temporary electrical tape I put on here just to keep it together. Take that off, and we're gonna start on the expander. Oh, and almost forgot, there's an extra cable here. As you can see, that extra cable is actually for the knock sensor. And so if you look right here, see right there, it's a knock sensor in between all the grounds. And as you can see right here, there is no knock sensor. So there's no knock sensor here. And that's because this is for a 90 to 93. So I put that down extra, but that doesn't mean we still can't use it. I can still use it, but I will probably have to end up soldering a cable from here to this knock sensor to the extra pins that I put out here. And that's if the Mustang comes with a knock sensor. I still haven't figured that out yet. I'm not 100% sure if it does or doesn't yet, because I've seen some stuff floating around, but they're only for GTs, and I got the base model 3.8 liter. So in the meantime though, I'm gonna strict all these down to a manageable length again, and then start working on the expander. Alrighty, I'll get back to y'all once I'm done with that.
program. My name is Dalia. I will be here to assist you with information about the album and its creation.
4 wires dangling off the expander. So 3 of these are for ground wires. So I'm not sure yet if we can just get some wires together and just bolt it down, or if we can run these to the battery, or what we need to do yet. But that's what these 3 wires are for. This wire right here, this is a EGO2 valve. I put this, but I didn't really mean to, mainly because I thought I'd have to run 2 wideband O2s, but apparently I can just get by with just one on the one side. But I'm gonna leave it here, so future upgrades basically. So I'm gonna just leave it here, and then I'll probably end up extending this cable all the way to the middle one. Like I said, we still have 8 pins extra left, and then we have this one down here from the PCB. That's for a knock sensor, and I left this out because I still don't know yet if the Ford 3.8 liter comes with the knock sensor or not. But if it does, we have it here ready to go, and I'll also just extend this out here. So these 3, I don't know if they just get bolted to the chassis or go straight to the battery. And then this one, I don't know if I know yet, and then this one, I don't know if I know yet. So I'm gonna do some more research on those, but these are all situation based on what you're gonna do. So of course I'm doing sequential spark and injection with the V6. It's gonna end up a lot more tedious, a lot more things that you got to do over here just because of that. But if you're still running a Miata, say you're running like a turbo setup on your Miata or something like that, you won't have to go through all of this. You probably won't even need to do sequential spark, but you could probably get away with sequential injection. But that's really it. These cases that come with the kit, that are the cases for the outside of the ends of the plugs, these are a 2-piece setup. They have screws and nuts from the top, one going this way and then one coming up from the bottom. And it's not really that tricky. Let me open it up and show you what this really is. It's not really that tricky. Let me open it up and show you how I got this done. Here we go. Got it opened up. Out of the 2, the only tricky one is the expander, because of typically all the cables that are going to come out of it. But usually you'd be able to put this sort of clamp back here in these grooves, but I had to just break off these grooves so I can put it back a little bit further because it just didn't fit. There's just too many cables here. And squeezing these around these posts right here is going to be a bit of a pain. You're going to have to bend the wires pretty good, substantial amount, to get it past those pillars right there. But the only tricky part about the installation is putting on the top cover after you have the bottom cover on. As you can see, you have to put in the screws to mount it to the ECU. So you're gonna have to sort of scoot it back a little bit, and when you come in with the lid, you're gonna have to get it around this little dangling plate, and so that's gonna be a little bit of a pain. As you can see, it's gonna take a little bit of finagling to get it in there. See, I got it. As you can see, the plate is outside of the plug, and you see this side is not. So working that in is the hardest part. Oh, here we go. And as you can see, the other side is not. So working that in is the hardest part about installing these little plugs. There we go. So now I got it clamped in, and as you can see, the screws, they work freely on both sides. Let me show you this side. You see both sides, they work freely, and on this side they're free, and it's sealed all the way around. It's touching seal to seal. And then the next part is just installing these screws. One is going to go down like from the top, and another one's going to come from the bottom. You can tell which one goes where because there's a divot right here where the nut sits perfectly. Let me show you that right here. And you can see I got the nut. If you set it in there, it sits perfectly in this side because it's shaped like the nut. That's what holds it in place while you screw in the other side. But yeah, that's how you do the plugs, and that's the last step. After that, you can leave it like this. You can put hot glue on this side if you want. I'll plan on leaving it open for now, at least for the middle part. The sides I'll probably put hot glue on. They won't change much as long as I still have a Miata. So in the future I can still do other things with it. All I'd have to change is the middle part in here. So that's basically it for now. That concludes this episode. So that was a really long video. I just finished editing it, but sorry that it was so long. It's just a lot of information you want to put into one video, and I didn't really want to leave anything out. And the reason why it's probably so long is because you can translate this to any other Miata. If you're going to build a Miata for a turbo kit, or if you're going to build an LS-SWA Miata or whatever you want to do, you can really use this guide to do really much any of those. But of course, like I said before, there's going to be different things that you're going to want to do differently. If you're going to do different, sequential spark, sequential injection, or if you're going to leave those out. So it's really a case-by-case thing. But I tried my best to keep it concise. It ended up being over an hour. So there's just things I can't leave out, or else you guys are going to be left sort of hanging. And I did leave out a lot of stuff in the beginning, sort of like the preliminary sort of soldering of like the little components and stuff, mainly because it's going to be the same as long as you have a Miata for that one, apart from a couple little things like jumpers and stuff like that. But that's mainly why I left that out. And if you want a more in-depth on sort of the earlier parts, you can go to another YouTube channel. I can't take all the credit. It's this other guy. His name is like Ped Xing, something like that. I'll put it up here. And that's mainly why I didn't go fully in depth in the beginning, because he goes better in depth in sort of that part, and then I went more in depth sort of on what I'm doing with my car, which is a V6 build, and he's doing like a turbo Miata setup. But that's all for now. As you can see, we got it looking good. In the next episode, we're going to be building the engine mounts for the V6 into the Miata, sort of fabricating those up. I'm going to show you step by step what I did to sort of get those put in. And then we're going to be testing it, wiring, and seeing if we can get that first start up. But even after that, there's still a lot of work left to do. We got to get the rear end done. That includes, our diff, whatever. Get our axles and drive shaft made, and a whole bunch of more stuff, honestly. But that's it for now. This super long episode. I appreciate y'all. Please consider liking and subscribing this. Please share it. Let it get out there to anybody that wants to do a Megasquirt in their Miata, It doesn't have, you know, $1,000 to throw around. This is a way better option for literally about half the price, and you can do it yourself with not a ton of skill. As you can see, I didn't. So I appreciate y'all. See y'all on the next one. Peace.
Look, pull up in the gold, I'm leading. But them other man need feeding. I don't wanna go Bombay. Them I don't know what I do when I go from Beeling. Leading the pack in black and I'm on with the bag. Snapping with a phone and die. Boss up a man with a duster. Put him in the drip and sit blockbuster. Win, 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 that's the only ammo.